in this country. So fine words, but very little action.
Good speech.
I call Julianne Genter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Green Party stands for a clean, green economy that works for all New Zealanders. We want to look after our land, our water, our air, and our people, and we can do this. In fact, that is the way that we are going to have long-term prosperity, is by looking after our natural assets and looking after all of our people, not just the ones who currently have all the money and all the power. We cannot support this bill because it is granting it's extending tax exemptions for offshore oil exploration. The government is granting tax exemptions to foreign companies to come explore in our waters to make it easier for them to potentially find oil, which is at very best only going to make us a little bit of money for a very short period of time. And I think that must be because this national government is actually in complete denial about climate change and about the urgent need to transition to clean, green alternatives, which we could do if there was the least bit of government support for it. But we have seen the national government cut tax breaks for development of clean, green alternatives like biodiesel. There's been almost no development in the biofuel area since they've come to power. And instead, they're handing these exemptions to foreign-owned oil companies. And it's hard to believe that in 2013, the government doesn't have a better idea about sustainable long-term economic prosperity, because we can have that. That's something the Green Party advocates for smart tax policies that would support clean, green businesses and businesses that are here in New Zealand. We're not even talking about New Zealand businesses here. We're talking about foreign oil companies. While New Zealand businesses, small businesses, don't get any breaks from this government. Why? Because they don't have the money or power to lobby the government for special treatment. And so time and time again, we see the National Party giving breaks to certain big companies, most of which are foreign-owned, so that they don't have to compete and they don't have to innovate. We've seen that happen with Sky City, and now we're seeing it with the oil exploration that's happening, which is not only not smart because there is no long-term future for fossil fuels in this planet if we want to have a healthy, stable climate for our children and grandchildren. But there's a very immediate risk of our clean green brand and our beaches. We saw how terrible it was when the Rena was ground on the taxation bill extends exemptions for foreign-owned oil companies to explore off our shores. And I think it's important that the public understands the very high risk of a spill when we're talking about an exploratory well. Now, there was only a tiny amount of oil that was spilled comparatively from the Rena on the beaches of Tauranga in 2011. If we had an accident like such that happened in the Gulf of Mexico, which was an exploratory well, which was drilled at 1,500 meters beneath the sea, then that would result in huge economic damage. Looking at the regulatory impact statement, it's pretty obvious who's dictating this policy to the government. Targeted consultation has been undertaken with the oil and gas industry representative body, the Petroleum Exploration and Production Association of New Zealand, which supports making the exemption permanent. Oh, that's a big surprise. The industry body supports making permanent tax exemptions. That's great. And MB also supports it because they don't have any ideas for economic development other than digging up and selling off the family silver. The Treasury was consulted and favoured the status quo of letting the exemption lapse. So we see the government ignoring advice from Treasury, which says, no, you shouldn't give tax breaks. One shouldn't give tax breaks to certain industries. It's not consistent with the government's broad-based low-rate tax strategy. So once again, the National Party, acting in the interests of a few foreign-owned corporations, risking our clean, green environment and brand, and privileging a few at the expense of sound advice from Treasury. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call David Bennett.
Just want to take a short call on the